everyone, and welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today I am Mommy the Beekeeper. So I got a call from one of the local neighbors about 2 days ago. The weather has been kind of crappy around here. July is very, very common for the heat and the rearing of bees that a beehive will swarm. Now, when people say a beehive swarms, they're thinking that it's off leaving the hive and attacking. A swarming beehive is actually very calm. They fill their bellies with everything that they can from the hive, and they leave generally with a new queen and leave the old queen behind. They don't generally just leave a hive. So it is a new queen usually leaving with a bunch of younger bees that are ready to kind of take off. They're doing their own split is basically what happens. So if you've seen some of my beekeeping videos in the past, I've done walkaway hive splits. When they start getting too congested, you can do a beehive split of your own. You can add a new queen, or you can take a queen cell that they have made, and then she'll just hatch out, go out and mate, and you're all set and ready to go. That's been a really good method for me for beekeeping instead of spending $185 for beehives. The other thing for me is I use, they're called mediums, not deeps, and then there's shallows. Well, you don't keep your bees in the shallows, that's for your honey. A lot of times where the bees live mostly is called the brood box. Most beekeepers use deeps. The problem is those deep hive boxes and bodies, just the woodenware alone is a lot of weight. And you know, I'm not a tiny girl. I'm 5'11", and I'm used to lifting 50, 65 pound bales of hay. So for me to not be able to handle deep beehive equipment, that tells you how heavy they are. There's no need to be out there. This isn't super heavy, but you know, you get warm because you're in a full layer of clothes. So today started out cool. I'm in a full layer of, you know, a long sleeve shirt and jeans. The neighbor called me and said, hey, the bees are on the move. I just dropped off a beehive box this morning, hoping that maybe they would kind of move out of the hole in the tree that they went to. All right, so here is our cluster of bees that has swarmed, and that is a really good cluster of bees. Unfortunately, they're a lot higher than I thought they would be. The tree that they're in is just over here, and it's a walnut tree. I'm guessing that's 10, 12 feet high. So fortunately, Chuck here is a orchard keeper, and he's got an orchard ladder that's 10 feet high. The trouble is, the only box that I brought, I just didn't think about, you know, how high they were going to be. I could go back home and get a cardboard box and shake them into the cardboard box. Ideally, I would want to open the top of this and shake the bees directly into there. But that's, you know, 20 pounds or so to have to lift up the ladder. Each frame is 6 pounds. Yeah. Oh, I can see them. They do a little waggle dance where they shake, so they send messages to each other and tell the others what's going on. I'll come over here and show you. Now, for safety, of course, I wore my bee suit, brought my gloves. The guy was actually mowing, and he got stung by the bees a few days ago, and this is where I dropped a box off this morning, and there was probably about 50, 60 bees here on the hole. They're coming in and out and saying, come on, let's go over here. So what they do is they leave the hole, or wherever, you know, hive that they're at, and this is, you know, not quite waist high, above my knee. We're a good 3 feet off the ground, maybe. Now, they could have gone up higher and made it really difficult, but I see some raccoons scat up there. Maybe they decided that wasn't a good idea. Now, a skunk will stick its hand right into a beehive and eat them a handful at a time. Does not bother them at all. So a lot of times they don't choose these lower holes like that. So we're going to climb the ladder, kind of see what to do here. So it's definitely a little warm in the bee suit today. These headbands, they're like exercise sweatbands, really help a lot so that you don't get sweat in your eyes when it's super bad. For me, I get all these little hairs and they get in your eyes and you can't do your beekeeping and wipe your face at the same time. So I highly recommend that. Did you know you were going to get some tips and tricks at the same time? So the 10-foot orchard ladder is just perfect. However, I can't really put the box at the top of the ladder because of this style of hat and everything. I have to be offset and hold a box to shake them into the box. I really didn't want to cut his tree. He offered to give me a tree pruning saw. However, how am I going to hold the tree pruning saw and the bees on the branch? That's kind of a two-person job. I try not to involve the family into beekeeping too much. The kids had bee suits when they were younger. I still have the bee suits, but after I got my first good bee sting, I won't let them do it because their bee suits were like my old one with the tie-on string instead of zip up. My hood and my veil zip right to my upper part of the coveralls, and it's much safer than what I had. They got up through the opening where it ties, and I kind of panicked and took my veil off because I had a couple in there and I was afraid of getting stung in the face. And instead I got a good 50 bee stings in my hair, and they couldn't get out of my hair because, of course, it was up and in braids. And yeah, I spent a good hour kind of close to shock and probably borderline, and my husband just had to watch me and put me in a cold shower to get like things calmed down. Not a good feeling. I got stung by hornets when I was small, much worse than that, so I knew I'd survive it, but it was still scary for him. And he, when he was younger, had an allergy to bee stings, so that's why I don't involve him, because with the kids, you never know how much they might swell up. All right, so we're checking out the home hive, the little honey hole where they came from, just to kind of see what's going on and see what I can see. And I can see, try to get you on Zoom. Now there's worker bees. There's worker bees going in and out of here, and I know my focus isn't great, but it's partly that I'm wearing a veil, so it's hard for me to see. So I can see comb in there. It's hard to tell exactly how deep open the tree is, and of course, you know, there's no desire to cut open the tree. This is a walnut tree, and Chuck says he was born and raised here in this house, so this tree's probably been here his lifetime. Trying to not stand in the path of their flight, you know, they're entering and whatnot, but they're coming in with pollen, so not all of the hive has left, which means there is a swarm from a queen throw off, so the new queen left. Now I'll tell you, I could not find a spot to put this camera, so brought a couple of boxes down. A good beekeeper brings boxes with the beekeeper. I had to go back home and get them, explain to my husband what was going on, and come on back. We're back at observing them. So I took a box up the ladder and I shook it. I shook it like you wouldn't believe. I got them all in a box, stuck them right here. It's been 10 or 15 minutes. They're going back, which means they still smell her pheromone there, and the other bees have called them there, or I never got the queen in the first place. Now there was probably 100 to 200 bees on the top part of the branch, and they did not want to shake off. And like I said, I didn't want to cut his branch, but I whacked that sucker 2 or 3 times, and I did use a little smoke for precaution. I got the smoker all reloaded and ready to go, but they went back. So I'm concerned about that. We're gonna get rain in a day or two, but we're already getting a lot of overcast, you can see. So I don't know how well this is gonna go. There was a good amount of bees on that landing board, and I still see some going in. But without knowing if she's in there or not, when I dumped the box, there was a couple thousand bees. And now there's a couple thousand bees back up in the tree. Yeah. Not much success. We'll see, I guess. Well, I think I'm just gonna shake them again before this cloud decides to let go, because she had to have been up there, and usually she's like in the center of it. I'm just gonna have to try a little harder. All right, I decided to go back up the ladder a second time. This time I did not put my extra frames back in. You need to have some space for them to go down into the hive. So maybe I had a better chance of getting her with a second shake. That's why I went back up. Ideally, a second beekeeper would be great at this. Let's take you up here. There's not a bunch here, but I already am seeing some wanting to come back. But if she's in there, all I gotta do is pick her off and take her. But I don't want to keep opening that thing up. Yeah, she never got to see that up close before. So if they go back to here, it's just not meant to be, and I've gave it my best. The ones that are up in the air flying around are going back to that spot. But when I opened up this box to do a second attempt, there was a half a dozen bees. They all went right back to that limb. So I just left too many up there the first time, and I'm just gonna stand here and observe it for a little while and see what they say. But there's a better sign, I think, at this point, that they're all over the front of the hive. Now, I've never had to climb a tree to do this way before, so hopefully it worked. But they're staying more on the front of that hive right now. Now, they could just kind of be getting together, waiting to take off again. If they don't like this hive for some reason, you know, they'll just leave. So an attractant is good, but I didn't want to overpower her pheromone by adding like a bee bait. You pretty much only want to add those in a bee bait box. They may have left on their own. They may have left because they smelled this. We're gonna try a couple of bait boxes in some different areas up over here in the next day or two to see if we can possibly get the rest of the bees out of there. I've heard of people using shop vacs, but really it's very high powered, and you could end up killing bees from sucking them out of the tree. And obviously we're not going to cut it down. As a beekeeper, catching a swarm is something that you watch for, but you don't ever think it's going to happen. People within 5 miles of me know that I'm a beekeeper, and this is the second time a person has called. This is the second time a person has called locally to say, hey, I've got some bees that you could maybe come and get. The first time, they were behind a brick wall, and they got in through the tuck pointing where the bricks are mortared together, and the only way to get them out was to cut the drywall. So yeah, I wasn't gonna do that because you need a contractor or somebody to tear open the wall, which I could do, but I'm not gonna do it at the expense of me putting their house back together either. Yeah. It's surprising with as aggressive a shake I gave that tree that I got so many in the second shake. But I thought if she was right on that branch in the center, it was worth the extra shake to go back up rather than doing the whole thing in another attempt. Yeah, I think this went better this time. They're not immediately trying to leave. The bad thing is about trying to add those frames right in the empty space. This is a 10 frame hive. You can use spacers and do 9. If you're to have this many bees and put the hives back together completely, you could end up crushing several bees, and you could end up crushing the queen. So then you've got basically a beehive with no leader. So this is a new colony they've left on their own away from the mother colony. So that mother queen laid all these eggs. This is looking good. There's a lot less activity up in the tree. The few that flew back to there, I could see them kind of gathering a little bit, seemed to be dispersing. Now, you might be wondering, once I get them moved in here, what do I do? Well, there's green strap there, so you strap it all shut, which is good to do before I leave it all, because if a skunk or a raccoon, you know, were to come around for any reason, have it get knocked over, then you've got a mess. Because right now I've only got it sitting on 1 cinder block, and it's a little bit balanced. I would have liked 2 or 3. My home hives get balanced on 3. But this is just looking fantastic. They're sticking around. So I'm gonna go up there and see who's hanging out still. Now keep in mind, I've been a beekeeper for, 8 years now. Yeah, there's not so many here. Less than when I looked up here before, so that's real good. Just hanging out. They're still flying around. They're looking for their queen. They may be still smelling her pheromones from being up there. Those queen pheromones and attractants kind of keep the bees like on a homing radar. See, now, just in the time I went up that ladder, The whole front of this was covered all the way to the other side there on the left, and they're dispersing and going in. Once the queen goes in, you're good. So I can wait until this evening when they're crawling on the other frames and put these frames back in, or just when they're a little more calmed down. So I'm just going to hang out. So I came over here last night at sundown and I added another box just in case there's another queen to swarm. They can start feeding several larvae at the same time and develop more than one queen. It's unlikely that there's ever one queen cell. So if they hatch out at the same time, they'll actually battle it out, and one of them will prevail, one of them killing the other. If she hatches out, she usually goes around, finds any other queen cells, and stings them or kills them while they are still unhatched. There's a little peanut-shaped cell. So we came by, super quiet, didn't know if they had decided to leave again later because it had been 5-6 hours from when I had been here. But they're here, they are active, they're flying around, they're getting oriented. It's not a lot of activity leaving. So we checked the tree to make sure there was no new clusters forming of them, you know, wanting to check things out. I just kind of see them in general, you know, a couple dozen bees, not, you know, 50 or 100 or 1,000 bees. So not too bad at all. It is looking great. So my first swarm catch from a tree worked perfectly. I've only ever done swarm catches on my own property pretty much as they were getting ready to leave, and I was able to catch them in that sort of timing. This is just perfect. So to get the bees back home, I'll come down during an evening hour and I will close off with a reducer the front entrance, duct tape it shut, put it in the trunk of car, drive it home. I'm just a couple of miles away, and I'll have a cinder block base set up at home because you don't want to set them right on the ground. You know, I've left unattended just for a day or two a beehive. They just get filled full of earwigs so fast, so you don't want to do that. Have them up elevated off the ground, usually 2 cinder blocks high. So join us for the next video on that, and we'll see you next time. Remember to like, remember to subscribe, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.